Hey guys, it's Elisa. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to go over the IELTS Speaking Part 1 question. Who do you live with? Okay, so let's just get straight into my answer. I live with my husband, or I live with my wife and my kids. We have 2 kids. My daughter is 7 and our son is 4. My daughter's name is whatever it is. My son's name is whatever his name is. We also have a dog named whatever our dog's name is. So it's a pretty full house. Or, if you live alone, it can get a little lonesome. This question is proof that I lie in my answers because I don't have a husband or a wife or kids. Yeah, you can lie. So I said this on another question about accommodations and where do you live. You want to kind of decide who you're going to live with for these questions, not in reality, but you want to decide who you're going to live with. You want to decide, am I going to live by myself? Am I going to live with a roommate? Am I going to live with a spouse, a husband or a wife? Am I going to live with my parents? And really the way that you want to decide this is what's easiest for you? How is it easiest for you to answer these questions? I mean, the truth is always easy, but sometimes for the truth for you might mean that you don't really have a lot to say. In my opinion, I think it's easiest to talk about living with some situation with other people, particularly with children, because it's really easy to say, I like to do this with my kids, I like to do that with my kids like to do this. It's just really easy to get another sentence or two in there when you're talking about them, especially when you get to part 3, and you have to stay consistent. So it's just, you just want to make sure you know who you're going to say that you live with, and you're just going to base that off of what's easiest for you. Make that decision now while you're practicing. Try not to make that decision while you're actually in the exam room. It just makes you have to think about more things and complicates your life. So decide now. If they ask you questions about who you live with and where you live, what kind of place do you live in and who lives in that place with you? Just decide now and then stick with that, go with that, and make all of your answers based off of that. So let's go over what I like to call sentence starters. Oh, wait. I almost forgot. I have to lecture you first. Before we talk about anything, I want you to make sure that when you're in the exam, you're talking enough. You have to talk enough so that they understand that you have a strong command of the English language. And the way that I recommend you do that is by trying to say about 5 sentences. You don't need to count them. You should not count them. But when you're practicing, maybe you should count them when you're practicing. You want to just be in the habit of saying about 5 sentences, maybe 3 really long ones. I mean, that's fine. If you say 4 sentences, that should be okay. But about 5 just kind of means you're saying enough for them to know, all right, this person, they understand English. They know how to speak English. They're good. If you only say a sentence or 2, they're really not going to know how good or bad your English is, and you may end up with a 5 or lower. And so to avoid that, if you say about 5 sentences, you're going to at least be able to show off what you know. Saying 5 sentences that don't make sense is not going to get you a 9. But, you can have a great command of the English language and say a sentence or 2 and end up with a 5. So you don't want to do yourself that disservice. Okay, now let's get into our sentence starters. So these are just ways that I've kind of pulled out that you can start some of these sentences. They are just suggestions. You don't have to use them. If you're struggling with what to say, then they might be helpful for you. If you struggle with grammar, then it might be helpful for you because it just kind of gives you the beginning of a sentence in a grammatically correct way. And so at least the first part of your sentence will be right. All right, so the first one is I live with, or we live, but usually I live with. It makes sense because it's who do you live with. So I live with my dogs. I live with my cat. I live by myself. I live with my parents. I live with my family. That's my parents, my 2 brothers, and my sister. Whoever it is that lives in your real house or your fake house that you're just using for the exam, you would just say who they are. So if you say I live with my family that consists of blah, 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 blah. I live with my husband and our children. We have 2 kids. We have 6 kids. whatever it is, and then go ahead and say a little bit about each person. So I live with my parents and my siblings. I have 2 older brothers and 3 younger sisters. So whatever it is, you're kind of describe who you live with, and you kind of spent 2 or 3 sentences doing that. They were short sentences, which is why you can't just stop there. But you've taken up some room. You've talked a little bit just in explaining who lives in your house. This is also kind of why I think it's easier to say you live with people, because it's just more words, more things to say, more people to talk about. If you have a pet, or if you want a pet, I think it'd be fine to say, I live with my husband and our 2 kids. They are 7 and 3. My daughter's name is blah, blah, blah. So you can name your family. That's a good way to, get more words in. And we all really want a dog. I think we're going to get one for Christmas this year. I don't know. But you're adding in, when you add a pet, you're adding in more things to say. You're adding in more sentences. All right, so let's go over some vocabulary that I use in this one. So I say we have a pretty full house. So Full House is a TV show, but also it means there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people in our house. If you live by yourself, you wouldn't say you have a full house. You have the opposite of a full house. If you live by yourself, but you have like 3 or 4 dogs, you could definitely say there's a full house, because there's just a lot of things going on. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of things that are alive in your house. If you have like 5 fish, you do not have a full house. But if you have 2 kids and a spouse, so I would say if you have 4 or more people in your house, you can absolutely say it's a full house. If you only have 2 people in your house, I don't think that really qualifies as a full house. It can be roomy. So if you only have 2 people in your house, or you live by yourself, you could say, my house is pretty roomy, and I like that it's just me. So you can say that too. So a little lonesome is something that I suggested you could say if you live alone. I don't find living alone lonesome, but a little lonesome just means that it's lonely, whether it's true or not. You can say it. A little lonesome is some good vocabulary, and that is why I mentioned it, as you can just kind of stick that in. You can also use a relaxing or a happy idiom in this as well. I think you can do that anytime you're talking about where you live or your family. I have a video that goes over some relaxing, happy, and idioms that mean easy. I will link that in the description below so you can check that out. And that can just help you slide in some idioms to your part 1 questions. I recommend that you have at least 1 idiom for part 1. That's the whole part 1. That's not every single part 1 question. Every single part 1 question does not need an idiom. All right, so that is it for this video. If you liked it, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel, and turn on the notifications so that you don't miss any videos that I have coming out soon. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.